Captain Hana pressed her long fingers against the smooth control panel of the Stellar Hope. The mining ship moved slowly through space, carrying precious metals from the asteroid fields of Gamma 7. She looked around the bridge at her crew. 7 other Velkari worked at their stations, their tall, thin bodies moving with quiet efficiency. The Velkari were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders. Their skin had a soft blue tint, and their large eyes could see far into space. They had been mining asteroids for hundreds of years, always fair in their deals with other species. Behind her, Engineer Kira checked the engine readings. Next to Kira stood Minho, the only human on the ship. He was part of a new program where different species worked together to learn from each other. Minho had joined them 6 months ago, and Hana had grown to respect his quick thinking and hard work. "Captain," called Pilot Deho from his seat, "we are on schedule to reach Velkari Prime in 3 days." Hana nodded. It had been a good mission. The asteroid belt had given them more rare metals than expected. The Velkari families back home would be happy with the profits. Minho was studying a small screen showing the ship's systems. He had been quiet today, which was unusual for him. Humans, Hana had learned, like to talk more than most species. "Something wrong, Minho?" Hana asked. The human looked up. His brown eyes showed concern. "The debris scanner is picking up some unusual readings ahead. Looks like old ship parts floating in space." Kira moved to check her own screens. "I see it too. Looks like the remains of an old battle. Maybe from the war between the Torvan Empire and the Zephyrian Republic 50 years ago." "Can we go around it?" Hana asked. Deho checked his navigation charts. "Yes, but it will add 8 hours to our journey." Hana thought for a moment. The debris field looked scattered and thin on the scanner. The Stellar Hope was a strong ship, built to handle the rough conditions around asteroid fields. 8 extra hours would cost fuel and delay their families waiting at home. "Take us through slowly," Hana decided. "Keep the shields at full power and watch for any large pieces." The next hour passed without problems. The debris field was mostly small pieces of metal and frozen gases. The Stellar Hope moved through it like a fish swimming through scattered leaves. Then everything went wrong at once. A piece of wreckage hidden in the shadow of a larger chunk struck the ship's main engine. The impact threw everyone forward. Warning lights flashed red across all the control panels. "Engine failure," Kira shouted over the alarm sounds. "Main power is down to 30%. "Life support systems are damaged," reported Yeji, the ship's medic. "We're losing atmosphere in sections 4 and 5. Hana felt her heart sink. In space, engine failure meant death unless help came quickly. The Stellar Hope could not fly home on backup power alone. "Minho, go with Kira to check the engines," Hana ordered. "Everyone else seal off the damaged sections and switch to emergency life support." The next few hours were filled with desperate work. Minho and Kira crawled through narrow passages trying to fix what they could. The human's smaller size let him reach places the tall Velkari could not, but the damage was too severe. "The main engine is completely destroyed," Kira reported when they returned to the bridge. "A piece of metal went right through the reactor core. We have maybe 72 hours of life support left." The bridge fell silent. 72 hours was not enough time for any Velkari ship to reach them. They were too far from the main trade routes. "What about the emergency beacon?" asked Pilot Deho. "Working on it now," Minho said, his fingers moving quickly over the communication controls. "The main antenna is damaged, but I can boost the signal using the mining equipment transmitters." 20 minutes later, their distress signal began broadcasting across space. The message was simple but desperate. "Velkari mining vessel Stellar. Hope requesting immediate assistance. Engine failure, life support critical, 8 crew members aboard." Hours passed with no response. Then the first acknowledgement came in. "This is Torvan Battle Cruiser Dominator. We have received your distress signal. Unfortunately, we are engaged in high-priority military operations and cannot assist at this time." Hana stared at the message. The Torvan Empire had 3 ships, within 2 days' travel of their position. Military operations were more important than saving lives. More messages arrived over the next day. The Galactic Trade Federation acknowledged their signal, but said their rescue ships were tied up in other operations. A Zephyrian cargo fleet was nearby but claimed their ships were not equipped for rescue missions. Most painful of all was the message from the Velkari Merchant Guild itself. Stellar Hope, we have received your distress signal. We regret that our vessels in your sector are unable to mount a rescue operation due to insurance regulations and crew safety protocols. Please maintain your position and conserve life support until proper rescue teams can be dispatched. Proper rescue teams would take a week to reach them. They had less than 2 days of air left. The crew gathered in the main cabin as their second day of waiting began. The air was getting thin, and everyone moved slowly to save oxygen. Why won't anyone help us? Young Minsu asked. He was on his first deep space mission. Because it's risky, Yeji said bitterly. If another ship gets damaged trying to save us, their insurance companies will lose money. Better to let us die than take a chance. Hana had no good answer. This was how the galaxy worked. Every species had rules and protocols. Safety came first, then profit, then politics. Other people's lives came last. Minho sat at the communication station still trying to boost their signal. Don't give up yet, he said quietly. Someone will hear us. Who? Kira asked. Every major power in this sector has already said no. The Moo human looked up from his work. There are lots of ships out there, maybe someone else will answer. As if to prove his point, a new signal appeared on the scanner. A small ship moving toward them from the outer system. It's changing course, Minho reported, excitement in his voice. Someone's coming. Hana studied the scanner reading. The ship was small, probably a cargo hauler. Its energy signature looked human. Incoming transmission, Minho announced. A rough voice came through their speakers. Velkari vessel Stellar Hope, this is the cargo ship Soul's Pride, Captain Jiho speaking. We received your distress call and are moving to assist. What is your current status? Hana felt a spark of hope but also worry. Humans were new to space travel. Their ships were small and their technology was basic compared to other species. Captain Jiho, she replied. We appreciate your response, but you should know the situation is dangerous. We are trapped in a debris field that has already damaged our ship. Approaching us could put your crew at risk. There was a pause. Then Captain Jiho's voice came back, firm and clear. We don't leave people to die in space. That's not who we are. Soul's Pride is beginning approach now. As the small human ship grew larger on their scanner, Hana felt something she had not expected. For the first time since the accident, she had real hope that her crew might survive. But she also wondered about these humans who would risk their lives for strangers when their own people had abandoned them. The Soul's Pride moved closer to the Stellar Hope like a small fish swimming toward a whale. On the bridge of the Velkari ship, the crew watched the human vessel approach through the dangerous debris field. They're crazy, Pilot Deho whispered. Look at their ship, it's barely half our size. Hana had to agree. The Soul's Pride was an old cargo hauler, probably built 30 years ago when humans first started traveling between stars. Its hull showed scratches and repair patches from countless journeys. Next to the sleek Velkari mining ship, it looked like scrap metal, but it was coming to help them when no one else would. Captain Hana, came Captain Jiho's voice over the radio. We're going to need some information about your ship. What kind of docking ports do you have? Minho checked the ship's specifications. We have standard Galactic Federation docking clamps, but also the old Velkari magnetic locks, he replied. Good. Our ship is old enough to have both systems. We'll use the magnetic locks, they're more reliable in debris fields like this. As the Soul's Pride came closer, Hana could see through her view screen how carefully it moved. The human pilot was skilled, threading the ship between floating chunks of metal with precision. Incoming message from Soul's Pride, Minho announced. They want to talk to all of us. A new voice came through the speakers, this one belonging to a woman. Hello everyone aboard Stellar Hope. I'm Yunji, pilot of Soul's Pride. I know you're scared, but we're going to get you out of this. Our captain has done rescues before. Then came another voice, male and cheerful despite the danger. This is Taiho, ship's mechanic. We're clearing space in our cargo bay for you folks. It won't be comfortable, but it'll keep you breathing. Fourth voice joined in, soft and reassuring. I'm Sora, the medic. I've been reading about Velkari biology. Don't worry, we have medical supplies that will work for your species. Hana looked around at her crew. The humans sounded so confident, so ready to help. It was strange after hearing excuse after excuse from other species. Why are they doing this? Engineer Kira asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, Captain Jiho's voice came back. Soul's pride to stellar hope. We're detecting some problems with our approach. The debris is thicker than it looked on scanners. We might take some damage getting to you. Hana felt her heart sink. If the human ship was damaged, they would all die together. Captain Jiho, she transmitted. Perhaps you should reconsider. We don't want you to risk your ship and crew for us. There was a short pause. Then Jiho replied, Captain Hana, let me ask you something. If you found us floating in space with our engines dead, what would you do? Hana thought about it. We would try to help you. Then that's your answer. We help each other. That's how it should work. Through the view screen they watched the Soul's Pride navigate around a large piece of wreckage. Suddenly, a chunk of metal scraped along its side, leaving a bright scratch. On the hull. Hull breach in cargo section 2, came Taiho's voice, still calm. Nothing we can't patch up later. Are you sure you want to continue? Hana asked. We're already here, Yunji replied. Besides, we called for backup. Backup? Minho asked. Check your long-range scanners, Captain Jiho said. Minho worked at his controls, extending their scanner range as far as possible. His eyes grew wide. Captain, I'm reading multiple ships heading this way. All human signatures. Hana moved to look at the scanner display. 7 ships were approaching from different directions. Some were cargo haulers like Soul's Pride. Others looked like passenger ships or research vessels. How many humans are coming? She asked. Everyone who heard your distress call and could change course, Jiho answered. The passenger liner Busan Express evacuated their dining rooms to make space for survivors. The research ship Jeju Explorer dropped their mission to bring extra medical supplies. That's just how we do things. Kira shook her head in amazement. They're risking their schedules, their cargo, their missions just to help strangers. Strangers today, friends tomorrow, came Sora's voice. That's what my grandmother used to say. The docking procedure took an hour. Captain Jiho guided his ship with incredible skill, matching the Stellar Hope's slow rotation while avoiding the floating debris. When the magnetic locks finally connected, everyone cheered. Docking successful, Yunji announced. Beginning atmosphere equalization. While they waited for the airlocks to cycle, Hana found herself talking to the human crew. She learned that Captain Jiho had served in the human space navy before becoming a merchant. Yunji was a former racing pilot who could fly anything. Taiho had grown up in the engine rooms of old ships. Sora was a doctor who had volunteered for space service to help people on frontier worlds. You all gave up better jobs to help strangers? Hana asked. We gave up boring jobs to help people, Jiho corrected. This is better. When the airlock opened, Captain Jiho was the first to step aboard the Stellar Hope. He was shorter than any Velkari with graying hair and kind eyes. Behind him came his crew, carrying emergency supplies and wearing confident smiles. Well, Jiho said, looking around the damaged bridge, you folks have certainly had a rough time, but you're safe now. Sora immediately went to check on the younger crew members, while Taiho began examining the ship's damage with Kira. Yunji studied the navigation charts to plan the safest route out of the debris field. Captain, Minho said to Jiho, the other ships that are coming, are they really changing their missions just to help us? Jiho nodded. The Busan Express was carrying 200 passengers to a vacation resort. Captain Nari told them there was an emergency and they'd have to share rooms. Every single passenger voted to help with the rescue. Even though it will delay their vacation? Yeji asked. Especially because of that, Sora said, looking up from her medical examination of young Minsu. Humans believe that doing the right thing is more important than having fun. As the Soul's Pride prepared to take the first group of survivors, Hana found herself wondering about these strange humans. Every other species in the galaxy made decisions based on profit, safety, or politics. But humans seemed to make decisions based on something else entirely. "Captain Jiho," she asked, "what will happen to your cargo delivery? Won't your company be angry that you're late?" Jiho shrugged. "Probably. But cargo can wait. People can't." Through the view screen, Hana could see the lights of other approaching human ships, 7 vessels, all changing course to help people they had never met. As the first group of Velkari transferred to Sol's Pride, Hana realized something that would change her understanding of the galaxy forever. She had always believed that civilization meant following rules and protocols. But maybe true civilization meant being willing to break the rules when someone needed help. The humans were teaching them what it really meant to be civilized. The rescue operation became more dangerous than anyone expected. As the first human ships reached the debris field, they discovered that the wreckage was much thicker than their scanners had shown. Hidden chunks of metal floated in the shadows, ready to tear holes in any ship that came too close. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of Sol's Pride, now carrying 4 Velkari crew members in his cramped cargo hold. He watched through the view screen as the passenger liner Busan Express tried to navigate around a massive piece of twisted hull plating. "Captain Nari is having trouble with that big chunk," pilot Yunji reported. "Her ship is too wide to get around it safely." "What about going over it?" Jiho asked. She tried that. "There's a whole field of smaller debris above it, like a metal cloud." The radio crackled with Captain Nari's voice. "Sol's Pride, this is Busan Express. I'm going to have to back out and try a different route. This is taking too long." Jiho looked at the life support readings on his control panel. The Sol's Pride was carrying more people than it was designed for. The air recyclers were working at maximum capacity. They had maybe 6 more hours before the system would fail. "Negative, Busan Express," Jiho replied. "We don't have time for another route. I'm coming back to help." "Captain," Taiho called from the engine room, "our hull breach is getting worse. That scrape we took earlier opened up more. We're losing atmosphere in Section 2. Jiho made a decision that surprised everyone, including his own crew. "Transfer half our life support reserves to the main cabin. Seal off Section 2 completely." Minho, who was helping coordinate between the ships, looked shocked. "Captain, if you do that, you'll have less air than we do if something goes wrong." "Something is already wrong," Jiho said calmly. "But more ships are coming. You folks need these life support reserves more than we do." On the bridge of Stellar Hope, Captain Hana listened to the conversation with growing amazement. The human captain was giving away his crew's safety margin to keep the Velkari alive longer. "Sol's Pride," she transmitted. "We cannot accept your life support reserves. You need that air for your own crew." Jiho's response was simple. "We have help coming. You don't." While Sol's Pride worked to redistribute its life support, the research vessel Jeju Explorer found a way through the debris field from a different angle. Dr. Wu Sung, the ship's captain and chief scientist, had spent hours studying the wreckage patterns. "I think this debris field is from more than one battle," Dr. Wu Sung reported to all ships. "The metal compositions are different. Some pieces are newer than others." "Does that help us navigate through it?" asked Captain Nari from Busan Express. "Yes. The newer pieces are denser and sink toward the gravity well of that large asteroid. The older pieces float higher. If we follow the old debris, we can avoid the worst of the new wreckage." Using Dr. Wu Sung's research, the human ships began finding safer paths through the debris field. But each ship that entered risked damage. The cargo hauler Daegu Runner suffered a punctured fuel tank. The survey ship Ulsan Scout lost its main communication antenna. Yet not one human captain considered leaving. "Why are they doing this?" Engineer Kira asked as she watched another human ship take damage while approaching Stellar Hope. She was talking to Minho, who had become the link between the Velkari crew and their rescuers. "Because it's the right thing to do," Minho answered. "But they're risking their ships, their careers, their lives," Kira said. "Some of these ships will need expensive repairs. The crews might lose their jobs." Minho thought about how to explain human thinking to someone from a species that calculated every risk. "My people have a saying. A society is judged by how it treats those who cannot help themselves. Right now you cannot help yourselves, so we help you, even if it costs you everything, especially then. As more human ships arrived, they began working together in ways that amazed the galactic observers monitoring the situation. The Busan Express, too large to navigate the debris safely, positioned itself at the edge of the field as a relay station and temporary hospital. Passengers who had paid for luxury cabins now shared rooms so that rescued Velkari could have medical care. The smaller cargo ships Seoul's Pride, Daegu Runner, and Gwangju Freight worked in formation, sharing their remaining life support reserves. When one ship's recyclers failed, the others compensated. Dr. Wusung's research vessel became a command center, using its advanced sensors to guide other ships through the safest paths. His crew of scientists worked alongside the ship's engineers to modify life support systems for Velkari physiology. "Captain Hana," came Dr. Wusung's voice over the radio, "we've been studying the differences between human and Velkari respiratory systems. We think we can modify our air recyclers to produce the gas mixture your people need." "That could take days of work," Hana replied. "We've been working on it for 6 hours already. Sora from Seoul's Pride shared your medical data with us. We should have a prototype ready within the hour." The coordination between human ships was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They shared resources without contracts, took risks without insurance, and worked together without formal command structures. Each captain made decisions based on what would save the most lives, not what would protect their own interests. "This is not how space rescue operations are supposed to work," observed Commander Throck of the Torvin battlecruiser that was still refusing to help. His ship monitored the human operation from a safe distance. "They have no proper chain of command, no risk assessment protocols, no liability protection. Yet they are succeeding where we failed to even try," noted his tactical officer. As the day wore on, all 8 Velkari crew members were successfully transferred to human ships. The Seoul's Pride carried 4, including Captain Hana. The Busan Express took 2 in their medical bay. The Jeju Explorer accommodated the remaining 2 in their modified research pods. But the victory came at a cost. 3 human ships had suffered significant damage. The combined fleet was running low on life support reserves. Several crews were breathing thin air and eating emergency rations. "All ships," Captain Jiho broadcast to the fleet. "We need to begin moving toward the edge of the debris field. Our life support situation is becoming critical." As the damaged human ships began their careful journey toward safety, Captain Hana found herself crying for the first time in years. These strangers had risked everything to save her and her crew. They had given their own safety, their ship's resources, and their mission schedules without asking for anything in return. "Why?" she asked Captain Jiho as they sat in Seoul's Pride's small common area. "Why did you do this?" Jiho looked tired. His ship was damaged, his cargo was delayed, and his company would probably be angry. But he smiled. "Because when someone calls for help, you answer. That's what makes us human." News of the human rescue operation spread across the galaxy faster than the ships themselves could travel. On dozens of worlds, billions of beings watched the events unfold through interstellar news networks. The first official response came from the Galactic Trade Federation headquarters on Centauri Prime. Administrator Kelth, a tall gray-skinned Altarian, stood before the Galactic Media Council. "The Trade Federation acknowledges the humanitarian efforts of human vessels in the rescue of the Velkari mining ship, Stellar Hope," Kelth announced in his formal tone. "However, we must note that proper rescue protocols were not followed. The human ships endangered themselves and others by entering the debris field without proper insurance coverage or emergency certification." A reporter from the Zephyrian News Network raised her hand. "Administrator Kelth, the human ship succeeded in saving all 8 Velkari crew members, while Federation vessels in the area refused to respond. How do you explain this?" Kelth's expression did not change. "Federation vessels follow established safety protocols designed to protect crew and cargo. These protocols exist for good reasons. Reckless actions, even when well-intentioned, can lead to greater disasters." On the bridge of Seoul's Pride, Captain Jiho listened to the broadcast with amusement. "Well, I guess we're reckless," he said to Captain Hana. Your recklessness saved our lives, Hana replied. The Torvan Empire's response was even more dismissive. General Vorthak, speaking from the bridge of his flagship, addressed the Galactic Council directly. The Torvan Empire believes in order, discipline, and proper military procedure, the large reptilian general declared. These humans acted without authorization, without proper chain of command, and without considering the greater strategic picture. Such emotional decision-making has no place in modern space operations. General, asked a journalist, 3 Torvan cruisers were within 2 days of the disabled Velkari ship. Could they not have assisted? Torvan vessels were engaged in critical, military exercises. The security of the Empire takes precedence over individual emergencies. This is basic strategic thinking. The response that hurt Captain Hana the most came from her own people. The Velkari Merchant Guild held an emergency meeting on Velkari Prime. Guildmaster Jorik addressed the gathered merchants and ship captains. While we are grateful for the safe return of the Stellar Hope crew, we must address the concerning precedent set by this incident, Jorik said, his blue skin darker than usual with stress. Several Velkari vessels in nearby sectors could have attempted a rescue, but chose to follow proper safety and insurance protocols. Protocols that let our people die, shouted someone from the audience. Protocols that protect the greater good, Jorik replied firmly. If we had sent ships and lost them in the debris field, we would have 16 dead crew members instead of 8 rescued ones. The mathematics are clear. But not everyone agreed with the official responses. On worlds across the galaxy, ordinary people watched recordings of the rescue operation and saw something different. In the crowded markets of Rigel 7, a group of Andromedan traders gathered around a news screen. Look how they work together, one said in wonder. No contracts, no payment agreements, they just help. It's inefficient, replied another. They damaged 3 ships, saving 8 people. But they saved 8 people, the first trader pointed out. When was the last time anyone saved your life without asking for payment first? On the water world of Aquarius Beta, the dolphin-like cetaceans held their own debates in the deep ocean. Cities. Their sonar conversations carried for miles as they discussed the human actions. The dry air breathers show wisdom in their foolishness, sang Elder Sana to her pod. They risked the self for the other self. This is the old way, the true way. The other self brings no profit, replied Merchant Delph. Why risk the pod for strangers? Because Mao, Sana's song carried sadness. Without such risk, we are no longer a pod at all. The most interesting response came from the younger generation of various species. On university campuses and in youth centers across the galaxy, students began organizing discussion groups about the rescue. At the prestigious Galactic Academy on New Geneva, a mixed-species philosophy class debated the human actions. Zelka, a young Torvan student, argued against her own species' response. My father says humans are too emotional to be trusted in space, she said. But maybe the problem is that the rest of us aren't emotional enough. Her professor, Dr. Henley, an elderly human who had been teaching at the academy for 20 years, smiled. What do you mean by that, Zelka? I mean, maybe caring about strangers isn't a weakness. Maybe it's what civilization should be about. Brix, a young Zephyrian in the TU, same class, disagreed. But caring without thinking leads to disaster. What if those human ships had all been destroyed? Then everyone would have died. But they weren't destroyed, Zelka replied. They succeeded because they worked together. They shared their resources, their knowledge, their risks. When was the last time you saw Torvan ships sharing anything with anyone? The debate continued for hours, spreading to other classes and then to other schools. Young beings across the galaxy began asking uncomfortable questions about their own societies. Meanwhile, on the human ship still making their way to safety, the rescued Velkari crew began to understand something profound about their saviors. Minho spent hours talking with his fellow Velkari, explaining human culture and thinking. Humans have a concept called sacrifice, Minho explained to engineer Kira as they shared a meal in Soul's Pride's small galley. It means giving up something important to help someone else. We understand sacrifice, Kira replied, but we sacrifice for family, for clan, for profit. These humans sacrificed for strangers. To humans, anyone who needs help becomes family, at least for that moment. Kira thought about this. But how can a society function if everyone helps everyone? Who gets the work done? Who makes the profit? Who enforces the rules? The work gets done by people who care about doing it well. Profit comes from making things people need. Rules are enforced by people who believe in justice, not just order. That sounds impossible. Minho smiled. 6 months ago, I would have agreed with you. But living with humans has taught me that impossible things happen when people care more about others than about themselves. As news of the rescue continued to spread, something unexpected began happening across the galaxy. Small acts of kindness, previously rare between species, began appearing in news reports. A Centaurian freighter captain changed course to help a stranded Rigelian trader, citing the human example. A group of Zephyrian students organized a charity drive for refugees from a recent asteroid collision. Even some Torvan military units began questioning orders that prevented them from helping civilians. Dr. Wusung, monitoring galactic news from his damaged research vessel, made an interesting observation. Captain Jiho, he called over the ship's communication system, I think we may have started something bigger than a rescue operation. What do you mean? I mean the galaxy is talking about us, about what we did. Some of them think we're crazy, but others are starting to ask why their own people wouldn't do the same thing. From her temporary quarters on Soul's Pride, Captain Hana listened to the conversation. She realized that the humans had not just saved her crew's lives, they had shown the galaxy a different way of thinking about civilization itself. But she also worried. Change was never easy, and powerful people rarely gave up their power willingly. The rescue was over, but its consequences were just beginning. 3 days after the rescue, the human fleet faced its greatest challenge yet. The damaged ships were running dangerously low on life support reserves, and they still had 2 days of travel before reaching the nearest space station. Dr. Wusung was the first to speak the truth everyone knew, but no one wanted to say. We have a problem, he announced over the fleet communication channel. I've run the calculations 3 times. We don't have enough air for everyone. Captain Jiho sat in Soul's Pride's small command center, looking at the same numbers on his screen. 8 human ships, 37 human crew members, and 8 Velkari survivors. The mathematics were cruel but simple. They had life support for maybe 40 people. How short are we? Asked Captain Nari from the Busan Express. If we maintain current consumption rates, we'll run out of breathable air 18 hours before we reach Station Kepler 7. Dr. Wusung replied. The fleet communication channel fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. 5 people would die unless something changed. Options? Captain Jiho asked. We could jettison some cargo to reduce life support load, suggested Captain Hyun of the Daegu runner. But that would only buy us a few hours. We could push the engines harder and reach the station sooner, offered pilot Yunji. But the damaged ships might not survive the stress. Or, Dr. Wusung said quietly, we could reduce life support allocations for some crew members to dangerous but survivable levels. The suggestion hung in the air like a death sentence. Reducing life support meant slowly suffocating while others breathed normally. Captain Jiho made a decision that would become legend throughout the galaxy. All human crew members, this is Captain Jiho, we're going to reduce our life support allocations to minimum survival levels. The Velkari survivors will maintain normal atmospheric conditions. Captain, Minho's voice came through the speaker. We cannot accept that. We won't let you risk your lives to save ours. You're not letting us do anything, Jiho replied calmly. We're choosing to do it. One by one, the other human captains confirmed the decision. Captain Nari was first. Busan Express agrees. We didn't come this far to watch anyone die now. Jeju Explorer confirms, added Dr. Wusung. My crew voted unanimously. Every human ship in the fleet agreed to the plan. They would slowly reduce their air quality over the next 2 days, staying just above the point of unconsciousness, while maintaining normal life support for their rescued passengers. This is insane, Engineer Kira whispered to Captain Hana as they listened to the humans coordinate their sacrifice. They're going to suffer for 2 days to keep us comfortable. No, Hana replied, finally understanding something fundamental. About their rescuers. They're going to suffer to keep us alive. Comfort has nothing to do with it. As the human crews began implementing the new life support protocols, Medic Sora worked with Dr. Wusung to monitor everyone's health. She moved between ships in a small shuttle, checking on crew members as the air quality slowly decreased. How are you feeling? Sora asked Captain Jiho during her second day of medical rounds. Jiho looked pale and moved slowly, but he smiled. Like I'm getting the worst cold of my life, but I'll live. You know? Sora said, checking his blood oxygen levels. The Galactic Medical Council says what we're doing is medically irresponsible. What do you say? I say medicine is about saving lives, not following council guidelines. The solidarity between the human crews during those 2 days amazed their Velkari passengers. Despite breathing thin air and feeling constantly tired, the humans continued working, maintaining their ships and caring for their guests. Mechanic Taiho, barely able to stand, still performed his daily maintenance checks on Sol's Pride's engines. When Kira offered to help, he refused. You're passengers, he said between labored breaths. Passengers don't work on the ship. But you can barely breathe, Kira protested. I can breathe enough to do my job. The most remarkable moment came when young Minsu, the Velkari crew member on his first space mission, offered to share the reduced air rations. I'm young and strong, Minsu said to Captain Nari. I could survive on less air, too. Captain Nari, despite her exhaustion, managed to smile. Kid, if we started letting you share our suffering, what kind of rescuers would we be? Throughout the fleet, similar conversations took place. The humans refused every offer to share the burden, every suggestion to equalize the suffering. They had committed to keeping their passengers safe, and no amount of personal discomfort would change that commitment. On the second day, when the air had become so thin that some humans were barely conscious, Dr. Wusung made a discovery that changed everything. Fleet Command, this is Jeju Explorer. His weak voice came over the radio. We've found something interesting in the debris we collected during the rescue. What kind of something? Captain Jiho asked. Rare metals. Very rare metals. The kind that sell for a fortune on the inner worlds. Captain Hyun of Daegu Runner laughed, though it sounded more like a cough. Great timing, Doc. We're about to pass out from lack of oxygen, but we're rich. No, you don't understand, Dr. Wusung continued. These metals are worth enough to pay for all our ship repairs, all our delayed cargo penalties, and probably our retirement too. The news traveled through the fleet quickly. The debris that had nearly killed them all contained a fortune in rare elements. So what do we do with it? Asked Captain Nari. The answer came without hesitation from every human captain at once. Split. It 8 ways with our passengers. What? Captain Hana transmitted from Sol's Pride. This metal was found by human ships, collected by human crews. It belongs to you. You were there when we found it, Captain Jiho replied. That makes you partners in the discovery. Even in their weakened state, the humans insisted on sharing their unexpected fortune with the people they had rescued. It went against every business practice in the galaxy, but it felt right to them. As Station Kepler 7 finally appeared on their scanners, the human crews barely had enough strength left to operate their ships. Emergency teams from the station had to help dock the damaged vessels. When the station medics rushed aboard to treat the oxygen-deprived humans, they found their patients more concerned about their passengers than themselves. Check the Velkari. First, Captain Jiho whispered to the medical team. Make sure they're all right. Sir, you're the one who's been breathing bad air for 2 days, the medic replied. They're the ones we came to save. Check them first. As fresh air flowed through the ships and the crews began to recover, Captain Hana sat in Station Kepler 7's observation lounge, looking out at the damaged human vessels. Minho joined her, finally able to breathe normally again. I still don't understand them, Hana said quietly. They nearly died to save us, and then they want to share their reward with us too. I think I'm beginning to understand, Minho replied. They don't see it as saving strangers. They see it as saving family, and you don't abandon family no matter what it costs. Through the view screen, they could see repair crews working on the human ships. Despite everything they had endured, every human vessel would fly again, and so would the bonds between species that had been forged in the darkness of space. 6 months after the rescue, Captain Hana stood before the Velkari High Council on Velkari Prime. The great assembly hall was filled with merchants, ship captains, and government officials, all waiting to hear her testimony about the human rescue operation. Honored Council, Hana began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I come before you to speak about the day our own people abandoned us to die, and strangers risked everything to save us. The hall erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. Guildmaster Jorik raised his hand for silence. Captain Hana, the Council understands you have strong feelings about this incident, but we must not let emotion cloud our judgment about proper rescue. Protocols. Proper protocols? Hana's voice rose. Our protocols left 8 Velkari crew members to suffocate in space while our own ships watched from safety. Human protocols brought us home alive. She activated a holographic display showing the rescue operation. Images of human ships navigating the dangerous debris field played before the assembly. These humans damaged their ships to reach us. They gave us their life support reserves when we were dying. They nearly suffocated themselves to keep us breathing. And when they found treasure in the debris, they shared it equally with us. All very admirable, interrupted Counselor Vask, but also reckless and inefficient. What if they had failed? We would have lost the human crews as well. But they didn't fail, Hana replied. They succeeded because they worked together, shared their resources, and cared more about saving lives than protecting their profits. In the audience, Engineer Kira stood up. Honored Council, I request permission to speak. After being recognized, Kira walked to the front of the assembly. I have worked on Velkari ships for 15 years. I know our ways, our protocols, our careful calculations. But I learned something from the humans that no protocol ever taught me. What is that? Asked Guildmaster Jorik. I learned that some things are more important than profit margins and safety ratings. I learned that a civilization is judged not by how well it protects its own interests, but by how willingly it helps those who cannot help themselves. The testimony continued for hours. One by one, the rescued crew members told their stories. They spoke of human crews who shared their food, their medical supplies, their air itself with strangers. They described captains who risked their careers and their lives without asking for anything in return. When the testimony ended, the council retired to deliberate. 3 hours later, they returned with a decision that shocked the galaxy. The Velkari High Council hereby withdraws from all trade agreements with species that refuse to assist the Stellar Hope, Guildmaster Jorik announced. Furthermore, we are establishing preferential trading status with human colonies and Earth itself. The decision sent ripples throughout galactic commerce. The Velkari were major suppliers of rare metals and advanced mining technology. Losing their trade partnerships would cost other species billions of credits, but the Velkari were not finished. They also announced the creation of the Galactic Humanitarian Response Treaty, the first interspecies agreement focused entirely on emergency rescue operations. Captain Jiho, who had been invited to Velkari Prime as an honored guest, was asked to sign the treaty as Earth's representative. I'm just a cargo hauler, Jiho protested. I don't represent Earth's government. You represent something more important, Hana replied. You represent what Earth stands for. The treaty signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. As Captain Jiho signed his name, he said simply, "We did what anyone should do. We answered when someone called for help." His words became the treaty's unofficial motto. Answer when someone calls for help. The treaty's impact was immediate and far-reaching. Within a year, 17 species had signed the agreement, committing their vessels to respond to distress calls regardless of politics or profit. But the most significant change was cultural. The human rescue had sparked something across the galaxy that politicians and business leaders could not control. Ordinary people began helping each other. On Centauri Prime, A group of young Altarians organized a volunteer rescue service for disabled spacecraft. On Rigel 7th, Andromedan merchants began carrying emergency medical supplies to help injured travelers. Even some Torvan military units quietly began responding to civilian distress calls, claiming they were training exercises. The humans seemed almost embarrassed by all the attention. When galactic media tried to interview the rescue crews, they deflected praise to their passengers. "The real heroes are the people we saved," Captain Nari told one reporter. "They showed incredible courage during their ordeal." "But you risked your lives to save strangers," the reporter insisted. "We risked our lives to save people," she corrected. "Strangers become friends the moment you meet them." A year after the rescue, Dr. Wusung published a research paper that became one of the most widely read documents in galactic history, titled The Human Standard, a study in interspecies cooperation. It analyzed how human crews had achieved what traditional rescue protocols could not. "The key difference," Dr. Wusung wrote, "is that humans do not separate emotional response from rational action. While other species treat compassion as a weakness that interferes with logical decision-making, humans treat compassion as essential data that informs their choices." The paper concluded with a radical suggestion. Perhaps the question is not why humans behave so differently from other species, but why other species behave so differently from humans. The changes rippled through space for years. The phrase human standard entered galactic diplomacy, meaning the expectation that civilized beings should help others in distress regardless of cost or convenience. Ships began displaying small blue patches on their hulls, indicating they followed human standard protocols. Emergency response times improved across the galaxy as more species adopted human-style rescue procedures. The final scene of this story takes place 2 years after the rescue. Captain Hana, now commanding a new vessel called Human's Gift, received a distress signal from an unlikely source, a Torvan Empire battleship with engine failure and dying life support. Her crew looked at her uncertainly. The Torvan Empire had refused to help them when they were dying. Their military doctrine emphasized strength and order over compassion. "Captain," her navigator asked, "what are our orders?" Hana looked at the distress signal data, then at her. Mixed crew of Velkari and humans. Minho, still serving as her chief engineer, waited for her decision. She thought about protocols and politics, about profit and risk. Then she thought about human crews who had answered her distress call when no one else would. "Set course for the Torvan vessel," Hana ordered. "Maximum speed, and prepare for rescue operations." "But Captain," her navigator protested, "they're Torvans. They would not do the same for us." Hana smiled, remembering Captain Jiho's words from 2 years ago. "Then we'll show them how it should be done. We learned from the best." As Human's Gift changed course toward the disabled Torvan battleship, Minho smiled. The humans had not just saved 8 Velkari lives 2 years ago. They had saved the galaxy's conscience. The rescue was completed successfully. All 43 Torvan crew members were saved, including their general, who had once dismissed human actions as emotional decision-making. As the Torvan survivors recovered aboard Velkari and human vessels, General Vorthak approached Captain Hana. "Why?" he asked simply. "Because when someone calls for help, you answer," Hana replied. "That's what makes us civilized." The phrase spread throughout the galaxy, carried by news networks and word of mouth. It became a rallying cry for a new kind of civilization, one based not on power or profit, but on the simple idea that all thinking beings deserved help when they needed it most. Years later, when historians studied this period, they called it the Great Awakening, the moment when the galaxy remembered what civilization was supposed to mean. And it all started with a small cargo ship called Soul's Pride, whose captain believed that some things were more important than following orders. The humans had taught the galaxy a simple truth. Strength is not measured by what you can take, but by what you are willing to give. That lesson echoed through space, for generations changing the way billions of beings thought about their duties to each other. And somewhere among the stars, Human ships continued their simple mission, answering when someone called for help, because that is what humans do. That is who humans are. That is why, when the galaxy needed heroes, humans stood ready to answer the call.